All our programs are based on educating the community, not just all different ages. And whenever we saw an opportunity to bring someone to cause to elicit a discussion, we brought people. For example, 2 or 3 years ago, we knew that there was a 50th anniversary of the Freedom Rides, and we were able to find an actual Freedom Rider who agreed to come down. She was in Parchment Prison for 6 weeks. And so once we have one person, we then try to build on that. So we found Ray Arsenault, who wrote the definitive book for the PBS documentary on the civil rights, and from that, we had a program. And then the year before, which METV helped us with so much, we had Dr. Abouleish, who came to talk about his story as a Palestinian doctor in Israel and how his daughters were killed in an intifada by the Israelis, but yet he wrote a book, I Shall Not Hate, about reconciliation. And I'm going to put in a plug here for METV. I shouldn't, but I will. Every program that we have done which involved diversity and inclusion, METV was there to record it. And that is so important, because people will forget about the actual program, but when they can see it on YouTube or a video, it's very important. My son David, friend Phil O'Leary, he said, made an incredible film called The Buffalo Hunt. You should bring it down here for your diversity initiative for a program. And then we started to look around, and we realized that nobody knows anything about Native Americans in this area. I mean, we talk a lot about white privilege, we talk about civil rights, and with the problems of African Americans in inclusion, we talk about Hispanic problems, but nobody, I don't think I've ever really heard about a discussion about Native Americans. When we read about it, it's from afar. We read about problems in Canada, we read about problems in Southwest, but actually, it affects us all, these problems. And we're about diversity and inclusion, and we're also about education. Well, very interesting that I had some trepidation about this film because I had seen it. It is a difficult film. It is not your action-packed movie that a lot of people thought. And when we brought it down, we had the good fortune of having Phil O'Leary, the producer, and President Julian Bearrunner to be here. And they put this film into context. They said, we want to show a film from the Native point of view, and that's what they did. And the actual production was superb. So the questions and the reaction, actually, to coin a trite phrase, floored me. Absolutely floored me. People didn't walk out, and some of the scenes could be construed as gruesome. People didn't walk out. And then the Q&A was incredible in the sense that most people raved about the film, but they asked good questions. And in actual fact, we could have gone on for another hour with just Q&A, and you might have heard, but Phil O'Leary said this was the most sophisticated audience that has ever asked Q&A about the buffalo hunt. Not only do we want to put on standalone programs, but we're also interested in helping young people who need a better education. We want to put together different groups in this society that will help. For example, many people who will see this know the problem of restoring voting rights to ex-felons. We are involved with a project to do that. I can't go into detail yet. Another is to help high school students get an education and get transportation to go to State College of Florida. I apologize. But so these are things that are quiet, and in many ways we're just as proud of that. And it couldn't have been done without a community like this, without people like you. And I have to give a call out, I'm sure Lytton will agree, give a call out both to Lytton, my wife, who totally does not like to be interviewed, but nothing could have been done without her, and Judge Charles Williams, who's on our board, and a lot of this couldn't have happened without him. Well, we have two short movies, one called Moses on the Mesa, which is I hate to use the word cute, an interesting film about a Jewish person who went to Arizona and ended up becoming the mayor of this town in Native American territory. And then there's a short film by J.J. Otero.
We interviewed him yesterday.
Yes, who will be playing tonight between these short films and the main film. And at the time, while they're hearing the music, there are food trucks, so people can buy food and listen if it doesn't get too cold. And then finally, the main film is called Rumble, Native American music that rocked the world. So I think this is a complete about turn from last night. This is a pretty joyous.
So Paul and Petra, here we are at New College as part of the Native American Film Festival, and what a great honor for you that your film that you produced and directed and wrote is part of the festival tonight. Tell us a little bit about it and the kind of the evolution of the film.
Right, Petra and I, we used to live in New Mexico actually for some time, and we once heard this really unique story about a German Jewish immigrant who became governor of this Native American tribe that lives near Albuquerque in New Mexico. And it's a very unique location. It's a beautiful mesa in the middle of this vast valley, so it's very inspiring. And when we heard the story, we just, we're filmmakers, we thought, well, that's an amazing kind of true tale that no one has told yet, and it took us a couple of years to put it together, and then once we did, the film did really well. People are really connecting to the story, so we screened it in many festivals before this, and we're excited to be able to share it with Sarasota audiences.
Well, first of all, New Mexico is a beautiful state, and it was great. Tell us what kind of response that you got from the community as you're trying to tell this really unique story.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people really respond to the fact that it's kind of an unlikely meeting of cultures, that you wouldn't necessarily think about, these two kind of ancient people coming together. The Pueblo Vacoma actually is one of the oldest inhabited settlements in the United States. I think it's like number 1 or number 2. So, it's been there for 1,000 years. And so this is the kind of thing that people are responding to, that, these two unlikely cultures came together. And actually, Solomon Bibo, who the film is about, out, he became governor in the late 1800s of this tribe. He married into the tribe. He had a wife, who was a daughter of a former governor, and he had children, who were then brought up over there in the Mesa. So, and even to this day, members of his family, they own some land over there, and they have sort of a profound relationship. You can, when you're driving around New Mexico, you can see there's a town of Bibo, named after these folks. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
So, Petra, let me ask you, as the producer of this, and Paul's writing and producing, what were some of the challenges that you faced of trying to put this together?
I think I would start with we wanted to be really respectful to the culture of Akomas, and one of the challenges was to connect to them and connect to the governor of Acoma at that time that we were filming, and to get the permit to film on Acoma lands. That was a bit of a challenge, still is, because we were not allowed to film on the top of a mesa. But we made really great relationship with them, and they even screened Moses on a Mesa in their center on Acoma Pueblo. Yeah, so that was really nice.
So today, as part of the Native American Film Festival, last night they showed the buffalo hunt, and I hope you had a chance to see that. Why do you think having a Native American Film Festival is important, especially here in Sarasota? And we'll start, Petra, why don't you start with you?
Well, I think it's important to bring this culture into our lives and to tell people about it. I think that we don't see enough of it, and I am really honored to be able to bring it to Sarasota audiences and connect to these amazing filmmakers and to the craftsmen and to the jewelry people and musicians. All of this is just amazing. So we're just happy to be part of it.
Now, Paul, as a filmmaker, you've got the opportunity to see, hopefully, some of the other films, and we'll see some of the other films. And as Petra mentioned, there's really not a lot about Native American stories that are out there, except you see the westerns and things like that. But the insight and the background of these proud people, it's really an interesting part of history. And you're part of that now.
Right, and I myself, actually have a great interest in history and historical stories, and that to me was one of the real inspirations to tell this story, because I thought it was just a unique story of history. But also, for myself personally, I realized, doing more research and meeting the Native Americans involved, that, they are very much here with us today. They're, like, a lot of people don't realize that there is a vibrant Native American culture out there. There is, a lot of art, a lot of ideas out there that we can learn from. So that's why we're excited to be a part of this, because we feel like we're hopefully helping in our own small way to kind of educate folks about this culture.
And if I may say so, the two of you have been involved with the Sarasota Film Festival for many years. You're like one of the main stays at the film festival over the last few years. But you have been involved with many other things too. You just were part of the Black Vision experience that was here. You were part of this thing this evening. Why is it important to you, to both of you, to continue to bring films of this nature, things that are unique to this community? Petra?
Well, I think this is all connected because of Sarasota Film Festival. Sarasota Film Festival is the hosting organization, so it's one of the hosting organizations, but because of Sarasota Film Festival's outreach and the amount of programs that they normally bring in, we just got inspired, and we saw that there is a way how to develop these programs and make more of them because the community is asking for it. So essentially that's what we started to do. We started to build on the main program of Sarasota Film Festival that is this year, 27th of March to 5th of April, and we started to see what else can we do in between during the year, and this is why we did the Visions of Black Experience and now the Native American Film Festival.
Right.
And what do you want people, aside from seeing your film tonight, the film last night, and I think there's several more that are going to be shown as well, what would you like people to take away from seeing some of the Native American Film Festival? Yeah, we had the opportunity to talk to Julian and Paul about their film, and they bring a lot of passion and intensity to this film, and it turned out. I guess last night it was a sold out audience. Is that correct?
Yes.
And thanks to the Sarasota Film Festival helping to promote it, brought people in there. What's the one thing that you want people to know about your film, Paul, and as you move forward, what's next for you?
Well, actually, this story, we've had a lot of great response to it. It's screened by now, I think, over 40 different film festivals and in I think 7 different continents, and we won numerous kind of best of festival awards. And so we're working on telling a larger version of the story. We're working on turning it into a feature film and perhaps even a TV series, because we've researched so much material that it's a much larger canvas than what you can really tell in the short film. So next for this project is that we're hoping to tell a feature version. So
That's very exciting, and the best of luck with that. Finally, from you, Petra, what do you want people to know about what's coming up at the film festival this year?
I'd like them to know that we're starting on 27th of March and we go to 5th of April, and we have 2 locations this year, the same as last year. We have the Regal Cinemas and we have Municipal Auditorium, and we're working on some really amazing programs this year, and we're going green. So we're gonna have a lot of new entertainment, a lot of eco films, a lot of new things in Sarasota Film Festival. Did I forget about something, Paul?
we have a lot of sidebars being planned. We have a number of sidebars being planned for and a number of different topics. We actually have more native films that we're going to show. There's going to be films about women's rights and gender issues, as well as another African American panel. And so it's just a lot of exciting things coming up.
Well, congratulations. The Sarasota Film Festival is very lucky to have both of you, continuing to do the great work that you do. Congratulations on your film. Continued success on this. And,
so much.
And we hope it develops into a full length or even into a TV series. And how exciting is that? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's super important for us to really get the message out about this film, so it's great to be here. I'm a filmmaker. I live in Brooklyn, New York. By trade, I'm more of a still photographer, and 3 years ago, I went out to Standing Rock, North Dakota, to take images and to document what was happening with the Dakota Access Pipeline, that pipeline that was pumping oil underneath the Missouri River. And that's where I met Julian Bear Runner, who is now the president of the Lakota Sioux in Pine Ridge. And together, the two of us made a film called The Buffalo Hunt. Initially, I decided that I was going to be just documenting what was happening with the Dakota Access Pipeline situation. Upon arriving there, I ended up in a truck with Julian one night, and we sort of came up with this idea together to actually make a film documentary. So I immediately made some calls back to New York, had some cameras that were brought down, and we started filming a documentary about his experience and the rest of the Oglala Sioux he was there with, their experience in Standing Rock. So that was the initial first phase of this project. After a few weeks of filming, there was an incident in which Julian and a few of the other main characters in the documentary were arrested. Yeah, there was an incident called Last Child's Camp. And basically Julian and his fellow Lakota, as well as a lot of the other water protectors that were there at Standing Rock, went to the top of a hill and started putting up 7 teepees representing the 7 different nations of the Sioux. The camp, the teepees, the top of the hill was surrounded by the heavily militarized police force that was there, and they came in, circled the camp, and arrested everybody. So a few days later, Julian was out of jail. I was sitting in a tent with him where he was staying. There was the Oglala camp, and it was a large tent where Julian and the rest of his fellow Oglala were staying. And we were sitting there, and I remember thinking, I have to go home now, Julian. A couple of the guys were going to stay, and I said, Julian, it's time for me to go home, but my son's birthday is on Sunday morning. And he says, you know what? He goes, that's a shame, because I really want to take you with me back to my home, the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, 300 miles away. to meet one of the medicine men, Chief Rick Raygrass, who's like a father to me. And so he gave me this amazing invitation, and he says, my dad, is what Julian calls him, wants to meet you. We want to do ceremony with you, maybe do some sweat lodge, do some Awipi, and let you kind of see how we live when we're back at home. So I said, Julian, it's an amazing offer. Thank you very much. I said, but I'll be breaking my son's heart. It's his, I think my son Flynn was going to be 4 at the time. And I said, I've been away for a few weeks already, and he's really relying on me to be there for this party. Julian looked at me and he basically said, look, you see that I'm just out of jail. You see what's happening to the people here that are trying to protect the water, trying to protect the future generations. He goes, come home with me and tell your son that you have a cause to be here and you're standing with us. And maybe one day he'll be really proud of you. And as soon as he said that, I knew that I was going to Pine Ridge, no questions asked. I called my wife, Nicola, and I said, darling, something's come up. I'm going to miss Flynn's party. And she started to protest gently. And then once I told her what Julian said, she was like, you absolutely have to go. So we got in the truck, drove 300 miles away to Pine Ridge. And I met Chief Rick Raygrass, who's also heavily featured in the film. And I spent 3 days without filming at all. We did a sweat lodge ceremony. We did an Awipi ceremony. And I started really learning about their life and their ways. Upon returning back to Standing Rock, I knew that the story that was really important to be told here was not the story of the pipeline, but actually the story of what's happening in Pine Ridge. And that's sort of the evolution of how this film came about. For a lack of better terms, it's what happens when the circus leaves town. While the protests were massively important, and I think it shined a beautiful big spotlight on a lot of the Native issues that are happening, not just here in America, but Indigenous people and Native people around the world. And I think it was very important. But I feel like at the time there was a lot of coverage of that. There was a lot of news cameras there, multiple documentaries being made. But who's actually telling the story of what happens when the sort of more sensational stuff isn't happening? And that's sort of the evolution of the film. The way I was treated by Julian, by Chief Rick Raygrass, by Will Pleniaros, by Dom and Darren and all the other guys that I was with on the reservation was unbelievable. I felt within a few days, a few ceremonies, that we were connected forever, that this was now my Lakota family. And even though our culture, my European ancestors have this incredible sort of brutal kind of history and what we've done with Native people, they're still so open and accepting of us, of the very people that have created so much hardship for them and have created this reservation life, which is really damaging the fabric of who they are. And so this connection I had to them was just so profound, and I just really wanted to tell their story in the most honest way possible without putting too much of my opinion or judgment on it, which is difficult, because obviously as soon as you introduce a camera into a situation, things are going to change a little bit. But so, we made some creative decisions behind that in order to respect them in their point of view. We have no narration, we have no interviews, and we have no lower thirds, no writing towards the bottom of the screen telling you what's happening. And the reason why we did this is because we felt that those three elements, while can be very important in storytelling, sometimes can control the narrative a little bit too much. So this film is really more of a meditation. It's a beautifully haunting, visceral portrait of a group of people told through their words. And I have to give a lot of credit to my team there, including my director, Philip DeFury, who is not here with me today, but Phil DeFury, very early on, when I got him involved in this project, he says, I want to know what it's like there. I've never been there, and I want to know what the people look like. I want to know what the place looks like. I want to be really connected to it visually. And he's like, let's try to use, tripods. Let's try to use very still, long shots to really capture that detail. And so Phil DeFury was really instrumental in creating the look for the film, as well as Fernell Morris, who's one of our cinematographers, and as well as a gentleman named Z. So between those three guys, we really sort of made this focus on the photography being very beautiful, but also the pace of the photography matching the pace of what life is like there. You know, things move slowly in Pine Ridge. Just to give you a little statistical background on what's happening in Pine Ridge, the population is about 25,000 people living on the reservation. There's 45,000 registered tribal members. They have, you know, a man's life expectancy in Pine Ridge is about 46 or 47 years old. I'm 45. If I'm living in Pine Ridge, I am at the end of my life at 45 years old. For women, it's a little bit older, it's 52. You have diabetes rates 4 times the national average. Teenage suicide is completely off the charts there. It's a massive problem. Alcoholism runs rampant. There's methamphetamine addiction that is only seemingly getting worse. And you know, household income is about $5,000 per year. So this is a culture that is really struggling to just survive. And what's amazing about the Lakota people is through all of this hardship and tragedy, the essence of their spirituality, their connection to their ancestors, to nature is still there and so vibrant and so beautiful. And so we had to be honest and capture both of those things, or humbly attempt to capture both of those things in this film. And it was a challenge. And there are certain things, it's like, do we want to show this side of it? Do we want to be this honest? But we had to be. And I think that Julian and Chief Rick and all the other people that participated in this project, they wanted to show us all of these different sides of reservation life. I think it was important for them. I'm forever connected to Pine Ridge. While, you know, we talked about a lot of these problems that exist there, for me, when I go there and I go up to Chief Rick's house to do ceremony, it feels like my home feels. It's another home for me. And there's such an incredible tradition of storytelling that they have, and of laughing, of joy. You know, this place is so tragic, but yet people are funny. They're telling stories. They're sitting around the table, and it just makes them so, you know, so endearing. You just want to be with them because you're having a great time, you know, through all of this. They have a tremendous pride and also a tremendous respect for their elders. And that's when an elder sits down to talk, you sit and you listen. You don't interrupt. And so it really, I think it's one of the things we're missing from our current culture is we're not respecting our elders. We're not relying on them as sort of still the leaders of society. And they still do that. And that attitude really sort of comes all the way down, you know, all the way to the youth that are on the reservation. But yeah, there's tremendous pride there, and there's tremendous pride in still doing things the traditional way. For instance, with the killing of this buffalo. This buffalo was killed in the most beautiful, ceremonial, ritualistic way. And every moment of that buffalo's life that I witnessed and death was special, important, and powerful. And the youth were there with the elders while the buffalo was butchered, while the hide was taken to the drum maker's house, when the meat was sort of portioned out and given to different elders or the more impoverished people on the reservation. So the buffalo in this film it's the narrative thread that pulls you through their lives, through their homes, into their kitchens, on their porches, into their backyards. And it really shows this pride and connection to that spirituality that their ancestors so desperately wanted to pass on to them and to the future generations. It's a meditative film. It wasn't really ever designed by us to have any sort of commercial impact. We wanted to make a film that was just authentic, and so we really didn't know how audiences would react to it because it's a little bit more done in an older style, a little bit more of a meditative, slower style film, which I think is great. But you know, current audiences are looking for something sometimes with a little bit more speed that moves well. More informational documentaries are very popular right now. More of that news style approach to it. But the people are really embracing it. So when people do see this movie, we've sort of accomplished that goal to really bring you into these lives, and it's sort of this fly on the wall experience where you really get to know who these people are. But I will tell you about the best screening we had. Now it has played in Europe. We've won some awards in Prague. We're currently up for Best Documentary at the London International Film Festival. We won Best Feature Documentary, Best Direction, Milan, I believe. And we've won some festivals here at home. But the best screening was the screening we did for the people in the film. So yeah, so we, after the film was finished, we rented this beautiful old theater in Rapid City, and we hired some buses to bring about 60 or 70 people from the reservation, and we created their own premiere. And it was one of the most amazing experiences and terrifying experiences of my life. So this was the ultimate litmus test to see if we did the right thing and if we portrayed everyone in the right way, in a respectful way. And I was extremely nervous that night of the premiere. And we got to sit there with 70 people from the reservation and watch them laugh and watch them cry. And it was just one of the most beautiful, amazing experiences I could ever have imagined. And I never thought that would have happened when I started making this project. We also had someone in our film, Teddy Two Soups, who passed away before we were able to screen it for the people there. And so that night was very difficult. Teddy's mom was there in attendance, and I had to watch. I sat with her, and she loved the film, and she was able to see Teddy, in the film, and it was just a really, really special experience. The goal, when I started making this film, a good friend of mine, Miles, we were sitting down talking, and he says, "What's your purpose? Like, why are you doing this?" And it's a question I really had to think about, and ultimately I came to the answer of to just elevate the conversation around these issues, and to get people talking about Native issues and to bring it to the forefront. And with that in mind, it was sort of all of these other decisions, like this inclusionary attitude and making sure, was just part of that overall process. And it continues to be that way. I mean, I'm still very much connected with people on the reservation. I will always go back there. It's another home for me. I mean, we have Julian Bear Runner, who's one of the main featured people in the documentary, who's now the president of the Lakota. And he's here with us in Sarasota, and will be participating in the screening tonight. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm a filmmaker. So I think there are a few different things about that. I think one of the most important things is I want people to just see a beautiful movie. I want people to feel connected to it. And for me, the movie it's very much a mirror film. And there's a lot of different feelings or mirrors that someone will get when they watch this film. My mirror, my personal mirror for this film is when I watch this film, it's also a story about humanity. It's a story about poverty, and it's a story about my own mortality and death. There's a lot of death in this film, including the buffalo who sacrifices his life for this film. And so I want people to sort of just look and to feel something profound by it, and to really appreciate the artistry and craft that went into it. And then the second thing, I think, is something that Julian would be better to speak to, but it's to elevate these issues that Native cultures are dealing with, and to get the conversation going, and to hopefully create some sort of social impact on these communities. This feeling of young people connecting to this film has only really happened on this trip. So we're here with the Boxer Diversity Initiative, and they've created this Native American Film Festival around us. And one of the other things that Dan and Lytton have been able to do is they have gotten us into 4 different audiences of children yesterday. We went to 2 high schools. The children were ranging from, I think, 6th grade all the way up to 12th grade. And to sit, I mean, they haven't even seen the film, but the fact that Julian was there talking about his life and his challenges and what's happening, and to see them interested, and some of them have never really don't know anything about Native American culture, history, or any of this. And I sat there and I go, this is it. This is like, the dream is actually being realized. We're actually talking about the issues. Julian is actually talking about the issues. And it was just such a beautiful day. And these children were so smart and so interested and asked such brilliant questions. So I'm so grateful to be here, and grateful for the Boxer Diversity Initiative to put this event on. It's absolutely tremendous, and it's a realization of what we dreamed about. And we started making this film. I mean, this was my first film that I've ever made. Again, I was a still photographer, but I've realized through this process that I absolutely love filmmaking. I love documentaries. I also love narrative films. So me and my partner on this, Phil DeFury, are already working on a few other projects. But also, there's still so much more work to do with the Buffalo Hunt. We're about to send this film out to 1,000 colleges and universities with a full press kit. And now, after the response we got yesterday, I also want to try to get into high school. So I want to keep this educational thing going, getting into colleges, universities, high schools, and hopefully having Julian and some of my other brothers and sisters from the reservation come and speak to audiences. So we still have a lot of work just getting the word out about the Buffalo Hunt too. I think art is a great way to segue into that. There are so many issues facing the world right now. There's environmental issues, there's political issues. And so how do you break through that information, that very crowded informational stream or highway? How do you get a word out about something? And I think, filmmakers, photographers, writers have been using art to do this for years. And so this is sort of using film, using images is my way of sort of trying to break through and to speak about the things that are important to me. And one thing I would love to mention is, while we've systematically almost destroyed many of the First Nations way of life, it's ironic because when I look to the way that they've treated this buffalo and the way that they treat the planet and the way they treat their ancestors, I've realized through this process that so many of our solutions to our problems are through looking at these different native cultures, indigenous ways of life. And in order to have sustainability, in order to sort of protect the future generations, we need to start having more respect for this planet, this beautiful planet that we call home. And I think I find it very interesting that we're almost eradicating these cultures that have these solutions, and it's a huge problem. I would thank them for allowing me to be there, for allowing me to share this intimate portrayal of their lives, and for creating a new home for me, and creating a spiritual connection for me as well to the earth. I mean, I told Chief Rick this one time when I was there. I said, I almost stopped believing that there was a creator, that everything was connected. And through the Sweat Lodge, through the Awipi, through listening to Chief Rick talk about his ancestors and their connection to the earth, I started feeling that again. I started feeling that real deep connection, because for the Lakota, and again, it's hard for me to really speak to, but my understanding is that everything is alive. Everything is part of the creator. The water is alive. The ground is alive. The trees are living things that we are connected to, and they have spirit, and they have purpose, and they have meaning. And I just wanted to thank them for showing me that. Now, I've read about it, and growing up, I was always fascinated with Native studies, but to actually be able to experience that is really a different thing. And I would just also say, just don't give up. Just keep doing what you're doing, and keep the traditional ways alive.
Ona onia wa kama zania dulaha kikta ya kabu khat khashla wo kla hechi. Al khat khashla ambetule itima hechi. Ona khat khaka kholaw ya pima hechi.
Before he goes through the doorway, he's gonna look back. And he's gonna look back, and he's not only gonna see you, he's gonna see right into your heart.
People were telling us that was the best soup ever.
ain't involving the people anyway. Why should we go listen to you guys swindle away our money and all of our stuff and not help us?
I love you, Auntie.
I love you, grandson.
So we're gonna pray, say a prayer, and sing a song, and then we're gonna go get our grandpa, look for our grandpa back there, and get ready for the Buffalo Kill.
There's some wicked things happened around here since the last time I seen you.
I said, my name is Julian Bearrunner. I'm the 43rd president ever elected for the Oglala Sioux tribe. We adopted our constitution in 1934, so since 1934, I'm the second youngest to ever serve in this position. I'm 33 years old, 32 years old. First time ever serving in this political capacity. I have a history. I've served in the military. I've served in law enforcement. I've served in the medical field, running on an ambulance. Other than that, I mean, I was born and raised on the reservation. Spent most of my life there, other than time in service, and a few years in middle school. You know, living in Texas and the Carolinas. Well, as a president, I have oversight of our day-to-day operations of the tribe. I represent a little over approximately 45,000 people. It involves engagement with other countries, or Indian countries, as well as as the United States government. You know, as the president, it's just, you know, the job is to, you know, look out for the health and general welfare of the Oglala people, but also to ensure prosperity of the people. And that is something that I try to make a priority, is to elevate us as a tribe, and to, you know, just ensure that decisions I make today are going to be, you know, effective for the generations yet to come. Well, first and foremost, my age, being young, you know, because a lot of the other leaders are, they're old enough to be my grandparents. So that said, that's a little bit of a setback, but I'm proving myself and overcoming that obstacle, to show that, you know, the younger generation, you know, are fit to fulfill leadership positions. Other than that, I mean, I have a lot of technological advances that I need to make within the tribe. It's a huge setback, you know, when we're still operating as if we were in the 1970s, you know, and so trying to make those technological advances, but also to encourage the other tribal leaders to come out of their comfort zone and you know, and to come up in time with the rest of the world. But, you know, I mean, again, really the biggest thing is just my age. You know, when I go and I engage with other tribal leaders, you know, they too are old enough to be my great-grandparents, you know, and so it's a little hard, you know. It causes me to be more boisterous, to set a more of a command presence. But then, you know, I fall back on my leadership qualities that I've received from the military, you know, which helps to open the door and set the pace for me in that position. You know, we're setbacks in so many ways in Indian country, you know, being one of the most impoverished counties in America, you know, with the highest suicide rates, the highest, you know, rate of diabetes, the highest rate of, you know, mortality. Life expectancy is you know, a quarter of what it is with the United States. You know, at 45 years old, a man is expected to be at the end of his life expectancy. A woman is in her 50s. So it's a huge challenge. You know, we have housing issues. We have just so many hardships. Healthcare. You know, law enforcement. You know, everything is in a greater need. So it's even more challenging for me as a young person. But, you know, I have the energy and the time to devote. You know, to give it my all to ensure that, you know, I'm working to meet the needs of the people. I met Phil in Standing Rock when we were We were standing up against the Dakota Access Pipeline, which was jeopardizing clean water for, 3 reservations, 1 non-native community. And it was also violating the sovereignty of the tribal nations, that originally occupied the area. But Phil wanted to tell the story of Standing Rock. He wanted to make sure that we were protected, and so our relationship started there, and then it just grew and prospered. Even up to the point where, when I was arrested. I was arrested in Standing Rock, and when I came out of jail, my adopted father said, you need to come home. We need to pray. We need to have a ceremony to cleanse you for what you've been through, because that's a form of trauma. So I invited Phil to come home with me, and then it changed. It changed both of us. Because Phil's like, I got to tell this story. The Standing Rock. Everybody's telling that story, but we need to do something different. And and I just took all the walls down. And I just, everywhere I went, Phil went, and I just exposed him to our everyday life, and nothing was filtered, nothing was, there was no secrets, the doors, the windows, everything was open, and Phil got to experience that, and and we formed a bond because he fell in love with the people and our way of life and where we come from, and just the bond that we shared. I look at Phil now as my brother. So it's, that's how we came to be, and now we're here today. Well, when Phil, when I brought him home to visit the reservation, that was, that was something that he wanted to do. He wanted to tell a different story, and a part of that was, the buffalo hunt, and how, one, our relationship with the buffalo as the Lakota people, and what the buffalo has done for us and what we've done for the buffalo, and the importance, of the role that the buffalo plays in our everyday life. So we started to set that up, and I more or less was boots on the ground. I was trying to facilitate everything to ensure that our agenda and our plans were being accomplished. And in the midst of all that, I became the centerpiece of the project, so it was, but it went really well. It was a very educational experience. It was an emotional experience for all of us, because it also didn't just help Phil, and it didn't help the non-native community, but it helped my own people, because a lot of the young men that partook in that, that was the first time they got to experience the buffalo hunt, and they got to hear the stories, because they're not, sometimes with families, they're not exposed to that on a daily basis, as much as we would like our own people to be exposed to that, be it in our own backyard, but it was the first time for a lot of people, and it was very unique experience, and it just benefited everybody, us and the non-native, and the work, that you can see through the film, to really be able to tell a story from our perspective, rather than having somebody come in or a third party tell our story for us. Right. So then we have the insurance that it's being told right, and also that it's done in a good way, and it's done in the right way. So it was just a great experience all the way around. Well, this is my second time viewing it. I haven't really participated or sat on any panels for the Q&A of the other showings, but this was the first time for me, and it was a different experience to know that the people that were watching the film, that were experiencing this, it was heartwarming for me to see that that they can relate to the humor, that they there was times when they laughed, then it was different to turn around and see the expressions, and people just so just tuned into the film, where it didn't bore anybody, and it didn't it really captivated the people, and they were able to relate, and it drew them in because of the sincerity of the project. and and then just to get the feedback and to be able to answer the questions, that just showed that what we set out to do has been accomplished. That there are those that are wanting to know more about the American Indian. There are more that they want to know about Pine Ridge. Why are we having these hardships? Why is this happening? And then they also offering solutions. And so it's showing a relationship between or an opportunity to just show the true story of who we are. Because just over time, we've been stereotyped to be heathens and savages, and it's not who we are. So it's really it's a fresh start to build a relationship with the non-native community. We as Lakota people, we don't see our spirituality as a religion, but more so of a way of life. And it's something that we walk with in our in our everyday walk of life. That we include that in everything, with prayer. Every step that we take on this earth is a prayer. And so we try to leave a good path left behind for those yet to come. But we also share a unique bond between Mother Nature, our natural resources, the animal nation, and our relatives that walked, our ancestors that walked on this earth prior to our being here. So it does display itself, within the film, and it helps to, and I'm hoping, it really helps the people to understand, that spiritual connection and and how spiritual we really are, as Lakota people. But also that despite the hardships and the negative stereotypes and all these isms that that have come to be, that we, just like the buffalo, can overcome those. The buffalo will put his head down and he'll take a storm head on, and that's more of how we try to live our life as well. That no matter the hardship, that if we just keep moving forward, eventually there's going to be a warm sunny day on the other side of that storm. So it's we are the buffalo and the buffalo is us, and we try to live our lives as such. My grandma, she would, I spent a lot of time with her, and she would, share stories, share the language, share the songs, and just being observant, and just having that opportunity. This is like somebody asked last night about, well, at what age do you start involving your youth or your young people? And a young man to us, is beginning his manhood at the age of 13. But I mean, today, you see people with the babies on the hip, and they're trying to at every age, just have them in the environment, so that they can feel the spirituality and the connection. But the younger, the better, because their minds are still developing and they're able to capture a lot more. And especially the intricate details as an adult would, and it's this, we were always taught to, listen first, before you speak, and I like to think that I've done well by obeying that, and just really listening to the people, listening to the stories, people that are older than me, and only trying to take what I find useful and positive, because today in this world there's a lot of negative, so it's really hard to try to filter that out, and sometimes that's hard to walk with, especially now that I'm in a political office. There's the negative that comes with that, but life experiences have helped me to become where I'm at today, and like when I set out even just to run to become the president, I went and sat down with one of our spiritual leaders, who told me, you're going to face a lot of negative, you're going to hear negative things being said about you, but he's like, words are like the wind, they come and they go, and you just have to just let it go, and don't engage in it, and I did just that, and now today I'm here as the president, so by listening to the advice, of our leadership, of our elders, of our spiritual people, it it works, you know, and it helps. You know, the stories and the history and the past of what we face and what we've gone through is what's helping me to persevere, you know, in my political career, to, you know that the things that we want to accomplish are not unreachable, and they're not a reality. I mean, they can be a reality, you know. It's not impossible. But, you know, I also understand, you know, I mean, our way of life was, you know, it was something that America more or less, you know, had a huge influence on imposing on us, and seeking retaliation. You know, we are one of 3 nations that came together, that and the only entities to ever defeat the United States government in combat. You know, and so we took the American flag, you know, and you know, we took out Custer and the 7th Cavalry. And so, you know, growing up, you know, our elders always, you know, that's something that they said. You know, why is it so hard to be a Lakota? Because they're still trying to make right, or you know, get even with us for that action. And you know, but you know, and it's hard to be a Lakota, but it's a very beautiful way of life. You know, it's you know, I wouldn't want to be anything other than who I am today. And you know, so carrying all of that, carrying the history, carrying our way of life, our teachings, our stories, you know, that is something that, you know, I carry with me when I go to Capitol Hill, you know, and I try, you know, to do my best, you know, to set a precedence for us, and to remind, you know, America just, you know, who it is that they're dealing with, and to let them know that we haven't died. You know, they think that we died when they killed Crazy Horse. You know, but little do they know, you know, the same blood that ran through his veins is running through my veins right now, you know. And so I have to keep his work alive, you know, and I have to carry on, you know, what he set out for, you know, for the people. And I remind them in Washington that, you know, that's who we are, and that's who we're always going to be. And now, you know, over time, America is waking up, and they're starting to see, you know, the unfairness or the unfair treatment of my people. And you know, and they're wanting to make it right now, you know. And we see even the United States politics, you know, is changing. You know, we have we have natives that are actually taking the seats of the non-natives, you know, and we see enrolled members, we see different ethnicities starting to sit down at the table. And you know, and that was a prophecy of Crazy Horse, that, you know, one day, you know, all the colors of the rainbow were going to gather, you know, under the tree of life, and you know, and we were going to reset and be prosperous, and move along. And you see that happening. You know, you see, you know, every race coming together, standing together, you know, to make a difference, because, you know, it's no longer a war or a fight for, you know, just the native nations, but it's a fight for humanity, because we're killing the environment. You know, we're misusing our natural resources. You know, we're stripping ourselves, and we're setting ourselves up for failure, or not even just ourselves, but the generations yet to come, the unborn. You know, and that is, you know, so that is today's fight. You know, it's a fight for humanity, and I see us winning. One, I ask the people to have an open heart and open mind. One, to know that we as Lakota people, that we exist. You know, and we still walk this earth today, and that we've always walked this earth, and that we aren't the savages and the heathens that we've been painted to be. You know, we are just, you know, natural defenders of our territory, of our land, and you know, but also, you know, as an educational piece, to know that, you know, this is who we are. This is, you know, how we lived our life, and you know, this is still how we live our life today. But you know, I would like. I mean, I already see it happening, you know, but I would like to see this on a more global level, you know, to give that first-hand experience to not, you know, to the non-native communities, so that they can relate, you know, but then also for other native communities to say, you know, well, let's tell our story. You know, the Lakotas got their story out about the buffalo, so. Sure. You know, maybe the Dene might want to tell their story about the sheep or something. You know, it's our, you know, just to get our, you know, our identity out there, and our true identity of who we are.
Phil, Julian, again, thank you so much for coming and talking about your film. the buffalo hunt, and for being here in Sarasota. And my first question for both of you, if you want to take a moment, is what did you expect? Coming from New York and coming from South Dakota, screening your film here in a coastal Florida community. What was your expectations?
That's a really good question, actually. I was a little bit nervous coming down. This is, can be a hard film for some people to watch, for audiences to watch. I mean, it's a very realistic portrayal of a beautiful people that are having some real problems. And so I didn't know how the audience would feel about that. But after the screening last night, I can tell you it's been one of the most sophisticated and beautiful audiences that we've had for this film. The people asked incredible questions. They really connected to the film. They connected to Julian, who spoke beautifully before and after the film. It just ended up being a really great experience. Super happy that we came down here.
Julian, what about you? What were your expectations?
I really didn't have no expectations. I don't know, I guess just naturally I thought that it was going to go the way that it went, and that's how, I guess, with back to the education about, things that the elders taught me is however it's meant to be, that's how it's going to be. However the creator wants it to happen, that's how it's going to happen. So I try not to sweat anything, and I just, go with it. So I figured if the creator's not going to put me in a difficult situation, and just having that faith and belief in a higher power and letting him handle the rest. I mean, it's all I can ever expect, and that's all I ever do expect. So, I felt, otherwise I think the creator would let me know, hey, you better be ready, But other than that, I didn't have nothing that would ever make me pause, or just show a cause for concern. And everything just went smoothly, and so I knew that this was going to be just as smooth too. And then being the president, I'm always find myself between, or in front of many different audiences of different, walks of life, and any really situation is I've been through. So it's just it was a breeze.
Yeah, I have to say, one of the things that I find, there's a lot of things about Julian that I find are really exceptional and special, and his belief in the creator, his belief that he just has to go through life with confidence and strength for his people is something that I really look up to, and it's greatly impacted my life, and it's given me the ability and the strength to make this film. And without Julian's unrelenting desire to always be pushing forward, and I saw it with him at Standing Rock when he was there, just as a common man for his people, trying to help the younger Lakota stand up to protect the water. And then the first time me and Julian were on the reservation together, we were driving through a blizzard, and it's, the roads are terrible, there's low visibility, and Julian says, pull over the car. And we pull over the car, and out of the corner of my eye, I see that there was a man who had fallen into a snowbank. And Julian gets out of the car, picks the man up, flags down the police or calls the police, and he gets back in the car and didn't even say a word about it. It's just like another day in the life of Julian Bear Runner. And this was before he was the president of the Lakota. And so I think it's just, he has a calling, and he just always pushes forward and moves forward to help his people.
And I would say to you, Phil, having had the opportunity to talk to Julian a short while ago, he's a man that's full of community service. Having served his country, served his community in a variety of capacity. And one of those things kind of comes through in the film is that he truly is kind of a man of the people. He really wants to make a difference. As your friendship developed and your closeness developed, did you see that as part of his qualities of character?
Yeah, absolutely. Just from the first day I met Julian, I just felt that he was a natural leader, and just really loved his people and really always puts that first. Julian, as he said, he came down here with no expectations because it's automatic. And I think that sort of strength is something that you just have to be born with. It's not something that's easily obtained. And then, one of the other things that Julian's strength and confidence has given me is, the Lakota people have a terrible, brutal history. And my ancestors were part of that history. And so to go to Julian's home with him and to be accepted with open arms, to be to be treated like a family member, like a brother from Julian, like a son from Chief Rick Graygrass, is such an amazing thing, and it really sort of changed my life in such a way that here you have people that were so heavily oppressed throughout their history, but yet still offering love and guidance. And not only did they allow me into their home, they allowed me into their ceremony. They allowed me to come into the sweat lodge to sweat with them. They allowed me to do a weepy ceremony with them. They allowed me to go on a buffalo hunt with them and to document this. And through this relationship, through them giving me so much, I have gained a brother in Julian and a complete love for the Lakota people. And I think it's an example that we really need to look to right now. There's so much division in the world right now, and I think that we're in danger of losing some indigenous peoples and native cultures, and I think right now we need to lean on that more than anything to sort of try to help save the humanity and to save the planet.
Wonderful answer, Phil. That was very eloquent. But I would turn that question around to you, Julian, now. And when you met Phil and when he was on the pipeline with you, what were those things about his qualities of character that you said, this is a man of worth and a man of value, and I want to connect with him? How did that connection begin?
Well, I mean, I guess it's kind of like a gift to be able to read individuals. I don't know. I mean, or it's just with the law enforcement experience, on how to read individuals. But at Standing Rock, there were so many people. There were so many people that were just there. Some just wanted, the attention. Some just wanted, to be the first breaking story. And all these different things. And we tried to stay away from that. We tried to just, and when we really, put our boots, we really dug in. We said that, whatever was meant to happen was meant to happen. Whoever was meant to be in our lives, if we were meant to be there, we were going to continue to be there. And, and as that time came, because at this point in time, there was a huge storm that came through, and it was going to be freezing below, temperatures. And, we had some of our spiritual leaders, some of our elders were saying, you guys got to go home. The leadership of Standing Rock was saying, everybody has to go home. You're going to freeze to death. But we prayed about it, me and the young men that were there, and we didn't have nothing. We didn't have no food. We didn't have no, we didn't have no water. We didn't have, wood. We didn't have what we needed. But the young men wanted to stay, so we prayed about it. Well, immediately the next morning, there was a guy that came and he said, hey, we just came from California. Are you guys going to stay during the winter? We said, yeah. And they said, do you need some food? So they gave us food, and the weather did a complete 180. The sun was shining, the birds were chirping, the camp, everybody was going back to work, and everybody's like, what the heck, what's going on? And at the same time, when we were offloading the truck full of food, a truck pulled in, and it's like, hey, do you guys need wood? And then so we offloaded this whole trailer full of wood. And then the boys were just like, they were emotional because they're like, we just prayed last night, and what was even more touching was the man that brought the food. He said, yeah, we just came from California, and we prayed when we left California, and we asked the Creator to, help us answer the call. And he said, and when we came to Standing Rock, this was the first place that we went, and they could have went anywhere throughout the camp, but and here we were in the middle, so they could have stopped along the way, but they came straight to our tent and asked us this question. So it kind of knocked the boys back a little bit. They were like, we just prayed. And I was like, well, that's the power of prayer. And then we met Phil. We had I was working along with Chase Iron Eyes, And he's like, I got some film crew, and he's like, they're coming, they want to get some shots, and he's like, maybe they can go around with you guys, and I was like, that's fine. And so as we started to develop a relationship, we invited them into the tent, and I can already see the connection that they were forming with the boys, and it was just, there was no gut feeling saying this is wrong, And I had a bad experience at Standing Rock, which led me to be cautious when giving interviews. A lady wanted to interview me, and she did, and it was at the same time we were arrested. And at the end of the interview, when she left my interview, she left her tape rolling, and she made law enforcement contact, and the law enforcement officer said, we'll let you go to the bottom of the hill. When she got to the bottom of the hill, the officer there said, no, you were on that hill with those people, so you're going to jail, and he arrested her. So when we went to trial, she gave her tape over, but she gave also my interview over. So they used my interview to convict me of criminal trespass on my own land and engaging in a riot. And so since then I was just like, no interviews. I'm not doing no interviews. That's what, as the president, I have a public relations person. They can go through there. I'm not going to give any interviews. But so that is what also developed. But then we developed a relationship with Z. And he really helped to break down a lot of barriers, because the boys were a little hesitant, but then. Once Z came, Kyle, and then after that, then Phil, and and then eventually the second Phil came, and it was just natural, there was no, and just to be able to get their understanding, and then they were also sharing their stories with us, and as we were trying to explain and tell the story of what was happening. You could see the sincerity in them and the understanding and the purpose of why they were there, which, I guess it just helped this relationship to prosper.
And I would say, too, to invite Bill back to the reservation and to share your ceremonies with him is a big step. It's really a matter of trust, too, to let somebody in that closely into your spiritual background. Right.
And it was, we're very inviting people, but you can always tell when there's somebody there that isn't right. And I don't know if it's just, an intuition or, the creator, speaking through, but it's just, we never got that, and then they were on the front lines with us. So it was like, they weren't just there to capture a story, they were part of the story. They lived it with us, they endured the weather with us. It was a different experience. And, and then it just became that, we looked at each other as relatives, and and I don't know if I explained this to Phil, but, we call each other a kola, and in our language, that means friend, but if you really understand the Lakota language, it's a deeper meaning, because a kola is somebody that you would give your life for, somebody that you would die for. So it means a lot when somebody from the Lakota people refers to you as their kola, because there's a deep bond, that. You wouldn't just give your life for anybody, but when you give your life for, a certain individual, is because, there's love, and there's compassion, and there's all these values that's instilled that you have between, for that person.
That's a great story, that really is. And if I may, and I'd like to hear from both of you about this, because the film is incredibly well shot and edited. It's just a wonderful film. But the sheer logistics of putting this together had to be daunting, had to be a challenge. Convincing people to participate and getting them involved and engaged, setting up things. Can you talk a little bit about the logistics of putting this? What were some of the major challenges, Phil, that you faced from a producer's point of view? And then, Julian, from you to convince your people to participate and be open and be forthcoming in the documentary. So whoever wants to start first.
This film was really challenging on a lot of levels.
First of all, there's a lot of very culturally sensitive issues that we had to make sure we handled correctly. We didn't want to film something that was inappropriate. We didn't want to film a ceremony that we weren't supposed to film. We definitely had to get permission from everybody in this film, and there's a big distrust of of people coming into Native communities with cameras. There's been so much abuse. And I've seen it. I've seen a lot of people that make films and projects in Pine Ridge, in particular, from my understanding, will come in, they'll get what they need, and they'll helicopter out, and you'll never hear from them again. And this happens over and over. I mean, Julian, is that I think you can talk to that in a minute as well. And so I had to really let people know. I had to let Julian know that, hey, I'm here for you. I'm not just here to take some photos and to take some video and to leave. Like, I'm going to be with you, and I want to tell your story, and I want to keep telling it, and I want to keep coming back to tell more of it. And I think projecting that in the right way and being authentic in that was a challenge for sure. The cold was a challenge. Just the actual temperatures and, getting the right cameramen there with the right equipment that's going to work in the cold weather, especially more so when we were filming in Standing Rock, was very challenging. I had a great director, Phil DeFury, who did the editing and also was a huge part in the creative direction, obviously, of the types of shots we were going to use. He did a really great job of keeping the team together and creating that camaraderie on set, not on set, but while we were filming, because I really had to deal with the logistics with Julian. I mean, Julian is almost like a producer in a way, because Julian was, and so, I mean, yes, Julian is kind of accidentally the main character in this film, because he was actually doing a lot of the legwork for me. He would deal with the rancher to organize getting the buffalo. He would get the boys around when we wanted to have a scene where we were going to do some butchering and things like that. So I had to really deal with a lot of that logistical stuff and making sure that we were not doing anything incorrectly or inappropriately, while we were shooting. And there was a lot of challenges. What do you think, Julian?
I don't think it was. I mean, it was very taskful, to just have to go out and make sure that we had what we needed, for the whole thing to happen, and and just organizing. But I mean, it was a little bit, I guess, because I've already developed that relationship with the community through my public service. So to go into areas where I wanted us to go where there was going to be no shields. Everybody's going to be open and just not really care, and just be who they are, and you can see that from the way the people are, and the things that they say, and and the humor that's exposed. It was quite challenging at times, just because on the reservation there's distances to travel from point A to point B. But like I said, I mean, I just kept in prayer and prayed about it, and and things just would line up and go accordingly, and and I'm just the people are receptive, and there's people that do want to tell the story and they want their story to be heard, but they also have been taken advantage of, plenty of times, and but I guess just my character or who I am, to get out into the community and that bond and that relationship already being established, it helped it to be a little more easier. It was just, Phil would call and, all right, this is what we need and this and this and this, and then it was like, go and and I wasn't running for office at the time, so I had a lot of downtime, and so it was it gave me purpose, after being home, because we were just we went home, we sat idle, we cleaned up, we took everything back from the camp, and just really tried to reintegrate ourselves back within our society.
And I would suggest too, Julian, too, that because of the respect and the admiration that you have in the community and among the tribe, that when you were asking people to participate or somehow get involved, because it was you asking, it was a little easier.
Right. And yeah, there were some that were like, oh no, we don't want, and I was like, all right, well that's fine, I'm not going to pressure you, but we're doing it, and I have the faith and the belief that this is something going to be good, and then they'd be like, oh okay, all right, so.
Well, I think that it goes back to Julian being a natural leader. When we were filming the buffalo hunt, Julian was not yet the president of the Lakota there in Pine Ridge, but his care, his love for his people, and his ability to lead and get things done was why we were able to actually get into a lot of homes and sit down with a lot of folks, and they were really receptive to us. And just to circle back to Standing Rock, I think one of the reason why me and Julian became so close so quickly is because it was a really sort of dangerous, difficult environment. And you learned really quickly what people were made of out there. The camps were, harassed constantly by a very heavily armed, militarized police force. There were drones, there were surveillance aircraft, there were armored vehicles, there were officers armed with live rounds, there were dogs, there were water cannons, there was tear gas, there was non-lethal weapons, beanbags and rubber bullets and all this type of stuff. And I watched, I was scared to be there filming. I was worried that I started getting paranoid. I thought the police were following me and watching me, and the military was listening in on my conversations. That's how crazy that environment was at the time. And, Julian had a lot to deal with because he was with some really young Lakota boys. And their life was in danger. There's no question that people could have died there. And the day of Last Child's Camp, when Julian and the boys and the other water protectors built those 7 teepees on top of that hill, that was terrifying. I got down off the hill right before they got arrested because I was worried they were going to take our footage. They were going to take our memory cards. And so we got down right at the end. One of our guys actually stayed up there. Z stayed up and filmed that. But it was terrifying. And, Julian was, was cuffed and everyone was cuffed and put in the vehicles in the freezing cold. It was in the teens that day. It was freezing cold, and they were brought on the outs. They were in open view. I think their vehicles didn't even have closure to them. And they left them freezing with tight handcuffs on those vehicles. And so we got to know each other really quickly because, there was life and death was there. And I think when you have these elevated situations, you got to get to know people quickly, and you got to learn who you can trust really quickly.
And I would also suggest to both of you, and I'd like to hear both of your comments on this, is that the level of effort and the passion and the deliberate work that you put into creating the buffalo hunt, it's up on the screen. That's the result of the work that you've done. And years from now, wherever, you'll always have that great legacy of the film, The Buffalo Hunt, and for generations to come. But the one thing that kind of endures beyond that is the message that you try to put out, and that message in this film is important. I'd like for each one of you to take a moment to talk about what you want people after they watch this film to take away. Julian, we'll start with you, if you'd like.
Well, I want the people to just walk away with a fresh understanding of the Lakota people, of the original inhabitants of this land, that we were here, we're still here, and we're always going to be here, and to just get a good understanding of who we are, that we are no different than any other race. That we all have our trials and tribulations and our struggles and our hardships, but that we are human beings, and that we love like everyone else, and we truly want a better future for everybody, not just ourselves or our people, but mankind in general.
Excellent.
This last 3 days here in Sarasota has been my sort of dreams being realized, because when I started making this film, I think I may have mentioned this yesterday, I was sitting with my friend Miles, and he says to me, what are you trying to achieve? Why are you doing this? And I had to think about it. It wasn't an answer that came up right away. And I went back to see Miles about a week later, and I said, Miles, I've been thinking about it, and I think I want to elevate the conversation around Native issues. I think I want to bring awareness to it, or, in some way. And we've had the chance to do that. I mean, 2 days ago, me and Julian went to 2 private schools, spoke to 4 audiences of children from 6th to, I think, 12th grade. And, with no judgment, or for lack of better terms, this was a privileged group of children that go to a very nice private school. And I don't think a lot of them had ever been exposed to any Native issues at all, or very minimally. Some were up on it, were more educated on it. And to be able to see Julian up there talking about who he is, and what his people are going through, what their struggles are, what's beautiful about them. I mean, it was an amazing thing to witness, and then to watch these children connect to Julian, and to see humanity in this way, and to say, wow, you know what, this is a really special person. This guy is a beautiful person, and he deserves love and respect. And then to have them ask such amazing, brilliant questions. I mean, that's right there. To me, I can go home, but the reality is we can't go home, because there's so much more work that needs to be done. And there's so many more conversations that need to happen. There's so much more education that needs to happen. We have to teach our children about this history, and the harsh realities of it, the brutality of it, what's beautiful about it. And I can't really do that. I need Julian to do that. I need the Lakota people to do that, to be their own voice. I'm almost just a vessel. I've always looked at myself as sort of just this vessel that channels Julian's energy and words and vibe and love and feeling about his people and about this life. And I just want to continue to do that for as long as Julian will let me.
And I would say, gentlemen, that as you said, Phil, there's more to be told, and there's more to be talked about. And it's a wonderful thing that you've accomplished. And like I said, the Buffalo Hunt will be part of a legacy that you've created and will live on for many, many years. But the other thing that's so impressive to me is the friendship and the closeness that you've developed over the making of this film, from Standing Rock forward. And I think that's another thing that's going to be a legacy for years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the last thing I'll say is, my son hasn't met Julian yet, but knows so much about him. And, he's going to be coming with me probably this summer to go to the Sundance. And, it's sort of living that idea of teaching the next generation, and starting at my own home, bringing Flynn around to the reservation to learn about the ways of the life there, and to meet Julian. And, yeah.
All right, gentlemen, any final comments? Julian, what would you say if you had the opportunity right now to talk to your tribe, to talk to the nation? What would you like to tell them about the success of this film and what it meant to you and what it means to the tribe to have this film completed? Final comment.
Well, I would just like to say that, I feel that we have opened many windows and many doors to the world, to really have an opportunity to tell our side of the story, and to ensure that it's correct, and that I see a lot of good things coming from this, whether it be just friendships with other tribes, non-natives, other ethnicities, different groups of people, but it's really gonna I feel it's gonna be very beneficial to the Oglala people, in the long run, because somebody out there knows who we are, and whether it's just this group of people that seen this film last night, they're going to go and they're going to tell 10 other people, and then those people will tell more, and eventually, the true history of the Lakota people will be, interpreted in a good and honest way.
Welcome. I'm Kelly Booth, here at Robarts Arena for the Native American Festival. Today we're going to meet some very interesting people and learn some very interesting things about the Native American culture. These things are very important for us to know and learn about each other as the human race. And please, stay tuned.
Oh!
here with Barbara Katoon, the director and founder of the Native American Festival here in Sarasota. It's an honor and a pleasure to speak with you. Please tell us what brings you here.
Well, hi. Very, very good. I appreciate you coming out and coming to learn about our event. This is the Sarasota Native American Indian Festival, our 13th year. It was founded in 2008 by my late husband, Rex Begay. And Rex was a traditional Dene Navajo artist. He was from Grand Canyon originally. He came here in the mid-90s. He settled here because he loved Ringling. He loved the art scene here and decided to live here. So in 2008, he decided that we were going to start a Native American Fine Art Festival. And there was an event that had been taking place for years, and the founders quit and decided they weren't going to have the event anymore. So we picked it up in '08 and turned it into a fine art festival. The focus of the event is to bring traditional Native American art, dance, music, and education and the Sarasota public together to bridge the information and education to help people learn about Native American culture, history, and tradition.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's a very inspiring story. Personally, what makes it so important to you?
Well, Rex's passion was to educate people about taking care of the earth, understanding the Native way of life, understanding our relationship with each other to live by the circle, and understand the real history of the earth, not just the Native people. But they're the guardians, the caretakers, and for us to remember that, that's what the work is about, for us to acknowledge, first of all, that we are the caretakers of the earth, and most importantly, that the Native American people have education and information and through the eons have learned these teachings, and we're here to share. So whether it's a tribe from South America or North America or anywhere in the indigenous communities, they're there to teach. They're there to share their wisdom and their knowledge. So this gives the whole city or the community an opportunity to come and access this education, whether it's through purchasing artwork and jewelry and learning the traditions and how they're made, and the symbols within things all have meaning. Learn about the food, learn about the dance. The dance is extremely important, and that's how we honor the earth, and the singing. And some of these songs are very ancient. The drum is the heartbeat of the earth, and it represents Mother Earth's heartbeat. And it's a medicine to dance upon the earth. So it's healing for us. So that's what it's about, and sharing it.
Barbara, I've noticed a lot of young people here today. What do you aspire for them to take away from this, or any of educational things that you might offer them?
Well, Friday, we preserve Friday for our Kids' Day, and that is our giveaway for the festival to educate children. So all schools, chaperones that come on Friday, there's no charge. That's our giveaway to the children. And it's really to help the children understand a little more about the relationship with the earth, understanding about how to recycle, understanding how to have more respect for our environment, and understand the Native American people and their teachings. The kids are fascinated with it, and they want to understand more. So it bring the kids to learn, and they can ask questions. We have a lot of traditional natives here from many tribes. So whether it's learning about the culture or learning about the dance, or if you want to ask questions on just just about any subject. You know, we have a lot of elders here, so it's really nice. You can come and get to know the people and ask them questions. That's why we're here, to provide an opportunity and a platform for the community to learn from the Native American people.
Now, outside of the festival here, do you have any local educational engagements that they could attend if they cannot attend the festival?
Well, we are working on opening up First Feather Gallery. I will be open in a couple of weeks, and I've had a lot on my plate between the festival and so forth. I've been trying to get ready. I've been renovating, and I'm just about ready. And it's Rex's work. Almost 500 pieces of art he left behind. So I'm going to be bringing the Native American Gallery to Sarasota, and that's the place where I want to bring the children. We can educate them. We can have groups come. We can storytell. We'll have different artists and educators coming. So it's happening. We're in the process of opening. So that will be the place. Yes, it will be First Feather Gallery. We're going to be on Central Ave. And we'll have a big announcement when we're finally open. It looks like the second weekend in February will be our opening.
Thank you so very much. I'm so honored.
Ladies and gentlemen, hey, Abenaki.
My name is Lauri Begay, and I come from the Navajo Nation. I come from the wonderful state of New Mexico and Arizona, and I'm here to hoop dance and tell stories and play flute.
Why is this festival important to you?
I think it's important that we have festivals like this to eliminate the stereotyping that's said about us as people. There's a lot of people that automatically, assume, from the Wild West movies and stuff like that, that they think that we are stuck in time, but we have evolved and we have evolved as people. We become doctors, we become lawyers, we become teachers and everything. But the most important thing is that we continue, that we exist and we still survive. Yep.
So what's your position here at the festival? What do you do? I noticed that you're wearing specific clothing, and could you explain that?
Well, I'm what's called a hoop dancer, Native American dancer. Some people say I'm a performer, but I consider myself a cultural educator, and that's for me the best way to put it, because what we wear is very a part of our lives. I don't wear this every day. This is something I wear when we celebrate life. So we call what we wear regalia. We don't call it a costume, because when you wear a costume, it's something you wear when you pretend to be something that you're not. Okay. So we have different designs that are passed down from generation to generation. This is kind of like basically the Southwest design that was given to us, and this is a shirt that was made for me, and this is my breechcloth, and this is one that friends of mine and I designed. So our regalia is a representation of us. Our colors mean different things. One of the three powerful colors that we do wear is red, yellow, black, and white, which represents the 4 nations of the earth, and which also represent the 4 directions, the 4 seasons, and a lot of things come in 4. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome. It's a very honor to be here and an honor to share my culture with many people, not only here in Florida, but throughout the United States and throughout the world. And it's always good to see people and share stories.
Have you been many places?
Oh, I've been everywhere. It's been everywhere. I'm blessed. I've been to Japan, I've been to Norway, I've been to Italy, been to Jordan, been to Ecuador, been to a lot of other places. Yep. I've been to every state in the United States except for one, and that's Hawaii. Someday.
At the end of the day or the end of the week, what do you want for people to take away from this festival?
I think I want them to take away the fact that the beauty of what we have that surround us, you know, the beauty of the Native American culture, and not only within our culture, within their own culture. Because people come here and they learn about our culture and they see that, and I always hear people, a lot of them say, they say like, oh, well, you know, my great grandmother was so and so or so and so, and well, I'm part Irish or I'm part German, I've traveled all over the world, and I always try to learn about different cultures and see that. So I think in what they take away, to be proud of who you are, be proud of your own culture, whatever it might be, whatever your background is.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much for that. Hi, I'm here with JJ Otero, who's actually going to be featured. His documentary is going to be featured in the film festival, representing Native American people. JJ, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. My name is JJ Otero. I'm Navajo and Hopi. I'm from the Navajo Reservation in New Mexico. And I'm out here for this wonderful festival, the Sarasota Indian Festival, and then also one of my documentary that was done about me about 4 or 5 years ago by a French company was finally released for the public about a month and a half ago. And so as our conversations went with the organizers of the festival, of this Indian festival, they talked about a film festival, and I just presented it as a one-off, just a conversation. And so they viewed it and they liked it, and they said, let's have it part of our festival. And before you know it, I'm going to be performing. And on top of that, there's going to be a Q&A at the end. My music is very political. And so for that reason, I think they're wanting to pick my brain on why it's political and how it relates to current events.
Thank you so much. Besides that, I've noticed that you're an artisan. Can you tell me about that?
Yes. So for more than 20 years, I was an IT manager, basically doing computer work in the healthcare industry. And so I found myself in between jobs, and I decided at that point it was a good juncture to move back home to the reservation and start taking care of my folks. They've given everything to me as I was growing up, and nobody was there to look after them as they're getting older. So I'm single, and then also my daughter's grown, and she's kind of doing her own thing in college. So it was a good time to make that transition home. During this whole time, I'm thinking, well, what can I do to make a living? Hopefully, there's an IT job somewhere out there that I can land, and nothing ever showed up for the longest time. So I had to start using my hands to make items that I could sell. It started out with woodcraft, basically making benches and furniture, and then. Long story short, I got really sick one winter, and I couldn't do the outside work in the winter, so I decided to do something inside. and that resulted in the jewelry work that I began. At the prompting of a good friend of mine who's also a jeweler. He's a well-known jeweler, and he gave me kind of that little nudge and said, "Why don't you try jewelry?" I said, "Why don't I?" And I just set about collecting tools, buying a little bit of copper at the beginning, and just started working on my jewelry work.
Now, you said that your music is political. What does that mean to you? Political. What are some of the challenges, I guess I'm trying to ask, that you see the Native American people struggling with?
Boy, that's you have to draw from history to answer some of those questions. Apparently, before 1492, obviously, that's when colonizers started coming to this country. Things were very different, so Native people have been killed, just to put it blankly, by the U.S. government, and so it has not been a very good trusting relationship between Native peoples and the U.S. government ever since then, and so it continues to this day with struggles with land rights, with human rights, with missing and murdered indigenous women. That's a huge epidemic that is brought on by resource extraction and all those industries that go along with them, like the oil industry, and more recently the lithium industry, where South America is kind of the new frontiers for this resource extraction, this lithium for green energy. And it's unfortunate because all those folks that are down there, the brown folks down in South America, are at the edge of that sword that's called colonization. So for that reason, I'm not very good as an activist on the streets in marches, and my platform really is music and through some of the art as well. And so that's how I believe I can make the best and the strongest statement that I can about what it means to be Native American in this present time.
Thank you so very much. Will any of this be communicated through your documentary too?
A little bit in the documentary. That was back at a time when I was just first sobering up. I was first getting sober, and so more of my focus at that time was to remain sober and to maintain that clarity that I had received as a result of putting down drinking. So, yeah.
It's been an honor. Thank you so very much. If there was one thing that you could offer the young kids leaving this festival, or anyone else, what would be the one takeaway you'd want them to take away from this?
I would want them to understand that all of this was originally indigenous Native American land, and that at some point in their life understand the history as to why this is indigenous American Indian land.
That wraps it up. Today we've met some very impactful people of the Native American culture and enjoyed some wonderful food. And if you have not been able to make it out, we encourage you to please come out and join these people for the sharing of their culture and who they are, and how important it is for us to know about each other. And thank you.